TWD family, in case you're not aware, there's a reason why we at Squawking Dead shy away from politics, and it's not necessarily the reason that you think. The fact of the matter is we live in a multi-planar world with an infinite prism of perspectives. We discuss the human condition every week, sure within the context of a zombie apocalypse, but we do our best to take those lessons into the real world. We try to find meaning and value in the journey. I'm not going to bury the lead here. Things fall apart, sure, but this too shall pass. The wind always wins and nature decides, seasons change, and we all eventually meet our maker. Nature doesn't account for our desires and needs, nature decides for us. It's what we do with that knowledge that determines our fate, because we are the masters of our fate. So how do we decide our fate? It's said that hell or madness is repetition, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. But we're not in hell. And the fact of the matter is that within the context of politics, people aren't satisfied with doing the same thing over and over again, especially if the result is the same. So usually what follows is an escalation or doubling down. Have you not learned from All Out War? Have you learned nothing from Rick and Negan going at it the same way and expecting a different result? And here we are drawing lines in the sand between us and friends and family simply because we pray a different way. And yet, all the while, we fail to recognize that what our loved ones are praying for is our own well-being. For us. They want us to be safe, healthy, happy, fed, successful, and even joyful. The only minor and insignificant difference is that they believe in a different way to go about it. And that's it. And rather than celebrate those differences and learn from them, as I've tried to do over the last 3 years with this podcast, looking at everything we break down and then learning and getting value from it and trying to see things from the other side as we eventually learn with Negan and as we try to figure out with Rick. Some of us have chosen to shut those differences out because they don't map on to the right opinion. But right opinion? The most fundamental survival value in your toolkit is the ability to adapt. The number one mistake you can make in the zombie apocalypse is overestimating your abilities and underestimating your everyday challenges. All of this to say that in order to breed and exist in a healthy world, we have to try to understand one another, especially the people in our lives that mean the most to us. When we shut them out of our lives, we deny one another the valuable survival tactics as a people necessary to navigate. No, not the zombie apocalypse, but life itself. I hope you took something from this speech. I just see people making fun of one another and deriding each other. The point is, we need to learn from The Walking Dead, from TWD family, to be a family. And sometimes to be a family, yes, is to argue about points. But it's also about learning to listen to one another, to gain value from one another. Reject the things that you might not agree with, but at least to try to understand them. Because when you do understand them, you start to realize that this is just another way forward. Another thing that we can learn from one another. And to not see each other as adversaries, but as partners facing in the same direction, looking at different paths towards success for not just ourselves, but humanity as a whole. So I urge you, please try and hold back from blaming and deriding and making fun of and putting down the other. Anyone. Do your best. Try to gain value from them. Take care, and if you've gotten something out of this, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I truly appreciate you listening. Take care.
We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes of the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, and sometimes, most times, we go deep. And today we're talking about The Walking Dead World Beyond's 5th episode, titled, what is the title again? Madman Across the Water.
Madman Across the Water.
The Huck Finn references are real. But before we start with that, we do have to talk about the elephant in the room, that is namely AMC Plus / AMC Premiere. So, last night, I woke up in the middle of the night after sleeping on the couch, falling asleep, passing out, waking up being like, oh, it's past midnight, let's see if Fear the Walking Dead's on. And it's not, again, this week. Sharon D basically confirmed in 2 screenshots that it was going to air after midnight on Saturday, aka last night. We're recording on Sunday at, 5:30? Time change, all that stuff, because now we fell back an hour for winter. That shit, that antiquated shit.
I don't know why we're still doing that.
Yeah, I have no idea. It makes no sense anymore. This is when we lived in a world where we didn't realize how valuable sunlight was to us, and yet we were dying. We were dying from cold. So, okay, put on the heater and shut your mouth and don't change the time. Okay, and let states that don't have that kind of heating and insulated houses and stuff like that. Not like everybody has them as it is, but still, let them decide if they want to fall back, Let's let most states not do that, okay? Can we not? I like sunlight. It's good for you. It's 5:30. It shouldn't be this dark. It shouldn't be this dark. I live in New York.
No.
Anyways, so the episode, Fear the Walking Dead's 4th episode did not drop as scheduled after midnight. I don't even know if I guess Sharon D says, got emails today that they were investigating a technical situation. I mean, listen, and hold on a second now. Sharon, did the episode air at 3 a.m. or did you just watch it in the morning? Oh, God. So, okay, so to clear things up, it aired technically at 4 because I had to fall back an hour and hit that 3:01. Because that's what they've been saying in the promos is that, it's supposed to air at 12:01 a.m. So because it never reached 3:01, and again, 3:01 is not the time. That's Pacific time, and listen, can we talk? Because even I, I happened to be up at, whatever o'clock, and I was about to go to sleep, and then I noticed, okay, it's 3 a.m. rolled over, it's technically 2 a.m. again, and I'm like, okay, so where's Fear the Walking Dead? And I thought maybe I can get an episode in, and just so I have it in my brain for the next time I get notes, and then, Monday, it's a little easier, and then it wasn't up. And then I thought to myself, okay, I've had it. I saw Sharon D's tweet. I quote tweeted it, and I said, hey, AMC Premiere, some of us don't get screeners, or I didn't say that, but some of us depend on this stuff so that so we're gathering notes. I should have mentioned, you're airing 2 episodes a week, so it means we're working double time trying to get things up. I see you're in a world where you usually submit your Skybound's The Walking Dead submits their fan reactions usually on the Monday right after the episode or Tuesday. You're now doing it on Fridays because of this express fact that you guys are falling behind. You guys are doing double the work trying to handle this stuff. And it's like, what the hell? So, again, and so I ended off, it's like, I know it sounds like we're complaining, but at the same time, when you mess up like this, it causes hardship for us. So do us a favor. If you need to DM us so that we can actually give you guys cover. I was just saying, happy to help. DM us, let us know what we can do to help, and then we can maybe resolve this together, at least, limit the blowback, because we're paying for this shit. We don't have to. Some of us just get AMC Premiere or AMC Plus now, depending on what you want, because we want Fear the Walking Dead first, and now you've pushed it to Sunday morning, early Sunday mornings. It's like, and again, it's not like to complain. I don't usually complain about this stuff, but okay, now it's getting a little ridiculous. You messed up last week, fix it this week. Mm-hmm. That's all we're asking. That's all we're asking. Mm-hmm. And so to Sharon these questions, I asked, why don't you at least let your customers know so we're not left hanging, but no response on that. Use your social media to kind of contact the public and smooth this thing over, because 2 in a row, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. All right. Well, complaining's out of the way. So we did our news for today.
I mean, I know we don't pay. I mean, it's like what, $5 a month to have these things early.
It's more than a cup of coffee. Which, by the way, I'm not going to do it now. Oh, and there's a reason why AMC Plus is $8. AMC Plus is $8 because you get a whole bunch of other channels too.
Oh, I'm just now realizing that Premiere and Plus are 2 different things.
Yeah. AMC Premiere is just AMC. AMC Plus is a whole package of IFC, for instance. Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of other channels, I guess. They get bundled with AMC if you use Plus. And even what's crazy is that when they rolled it out, it wasn't even available to all subscribers, too. AMC Plus is just, so far, just Xfinity, I think, and just a couple of other vendors. So I don't know what their deal is. Okay, why roll out this product if you don't have it prepared for all your other cable customers too?
I guess I only have the Premiere. I didn't realize it was different. I don't know what the other channels are, but whatever they are, I'm sure it's not anything that I watch.
Yeah, I get that. What are your impressions on this episode?
For me, this episode felt geared around Huck and Elton. I think we are definitely learning more about those characters. I feel like I would call this episode, Huck and Elton centric. There were some tidbits that I picked up that I'm glad to know. But, other than that, it just kind of was like, hey, here's what happened today.
Yeah.
Kind of an episode,
Or hey, I bet you wanted to know how things were like for Elton. Well, here it is.
Yeah.
Because we're in the fifth episode, and we're talking about several children that go through a little bit of their past and stuff like that. And now,
did you look up to see who plays young Elton?
He looked and sounded a little like Anthony Azar. Basically plays R.J. Grimes a little bit.
Stop.
And yet,
I thought this kid was amazing.
I know that's the thing. That's what I was gonna say. Like he looked kind of and sound kind of like Anthony Azar, except like just way more talented.
I thought this kid was amazing. Oh my gosh. I wrote several times in my notes, I'm like, just give this kid the gold already. He was amazing. I mean, that little boy made me cry harder in this episode than I have all season.
Yeah. What a tiny little generator, like a little emotional generator, like especially at the end, right?
Right. In the box.
Over Elton's monologue. Like, that little, like when the subtitles came up and it said whimpering. And,
right.
It's terrible. It's.
I like how they both. They sort of cried the same way too. Like we see Elton sort of mustering up the tears and like really thinking about what's going on, and then we see that same thing happen with young Elton when he sees his dad in the hallway. He doesn't just burst into tears. Like he kind of processes it and then is sad and then moves on because he got to get the hell out of there. But I like that. Like it really felt like young Elton.
Yeah, like the looking at his dad's body, his eyes wide open, like, and then doing the like frown thing.
Yeah, right.
And then holding on it, and then just turning away, looking at the bag, going walks off. I like that little touch at the end though, where he kind of just looks back just for a second and goes, "I guess that's it," like in his head or something like that.
He's 5 years old.
It's time to move on.
So grown up. That was heartbreaking.
Yeah. It was.
Poor baby. I just wanted to hold him and go, "It's okay, it's okay."
Oh, Roger Dale Floyd. That's the kid's name. Oh, look, he's a little long hair. Oh, it's so cute with his little bow tie.
Aww.
Oh, he was in Dr. Sleep.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And
yeah.
Greenland too, which I'd heard of too.
Was he young Danny or was he the girlfriend's kid?
Young Danny. That's right.
Young Danny.
This guy's making tracks. This little actor. No wonder.
He's so good. He's so good.
They just nabbed his ass. It's so great. I want to read Nisa's comment, though. The most prominent force in nature in the book was the Mississippi River in Huck Finn. Huck's main goal is to get away from his terrible, abusive drunk of a father. Without the access of Mississippi, Huck might not have ever escaped his father, and his father could have easily killed Huck. So, unstoppable force meet immovable object.
I wonder if we'll ever find out Huck's real name.
We might not ever. As things go, we might not ever find out Huck's real name. In the beginning of the episode, it focuses on a fake ivy leaf in the beginning. The fake ivy leaf from the Daiquiri...
Daiquiri Town.
Yeah, Daiquiri Town, which is like Margaritaville, Daiquiri Town.
Right, Daiquiri Town.
So stupid. But I love how stupid it is. Like, it's like, okay, we can't use Margaritaville, and we can't use Mojito Village, So... Which is not a thing. I just made that up now. Mojito Village. So let's use the stupidest thing you could think of for a place. And then what's funny about that is that you end up reaching Daiquiri Town, and it's as stupid as the name. It's like shack, probably with like, and it is. It's with fake flamingos in the back. Like, oh, it's nature as it was intended. Plastic.
Yeah, like one building, not a town, not even several buildings or cantinas, but just one building.
One shack.
That's a town, apparently.
Yeah, not even. Oh God, it's a town. No, it's not. But yeah, so yeah, going into as Niece has been saying and Sharon has been saying, it's like going into that sign, zooming out from that one fake ivy leaf, which looks funny, talking about like the idea of entropy and nature winning and all that stuff, and like even the paint's wearing away. Nothing is forever. Things fall apart, as they say. So I kind of like that. I kind of like that Elton even smiles at that. The idea of object permanence and how there really isn't any. And as he's musing over his mom's words, like, and you could tell, like, he's been thumbing his mom's manuscript throughout this entire episode, smiling at the things that his group do to kind of, in a way, break from the wind, break the wind. So basically, the whole group is farting. No, like by the end of it, he writes. It's not to quit, just jump to the end, but like the idea of he adds his own little addendum to his mom's words. Let's go through his mom's words and let's go through that, because she writes, "What is the strongest force in the world? If you were a lay person, you might say gravity. If you're a high school student, you might say electromagnetism," which features in this episode as the was it positive strike? Is that what Elton says?
Strike.
How the lightning, the lightning's able to reach them 20 miles away from the storm. If you were a physicist, you might say nuclear, but you'd all be wrong, because the strongest force in the world is the force of nature. Nature contains us all. We are nature, cogs in a massive machine playing our part, playing more than our part. We, as a race, think we can escape its pronouncements, skirt its rulings, sneak past its guards. I love that analogy. It gives no consideration to wants or needs, feelings or sentiment. We think we can steal from it and come away with its bounty without consequence, but it contains us from our beginning to our end. The biological imperative that all organisms must survive, to seek food, water, shelter, to procreate, is the only reasonable offset for the crushing power of nature. Now, as we go through this episode and we meet Elton's parents, there's a little bit of that, like, tiger and the lamb thing going on. Not to bring that theme back, but and yet at the same time, the show does this really, really cool thing and reminds us how beautiful the destructive force of nature is. Like, as his dad's commenting on the meteor's beauty, like, obviously he's like, oh, I was looking at Mars and this meteor just streaked across the sky. And you're like, shoot, when you see a meteor shower, it's like beautiful. But when you get up close,
what it actually is terrifying. Yeah.
And it's
beautiful from a distance.
Right, and it's the very thing that ended the dinosaurs, basically, is as he goes through it. It's like, yeah, it's so cool. Hits the earth, and fire burns up the entire planet. Oh shit, honey, hey, cut the shit. It's a fucking kid.
He's 5.
He's like, he needs to know about this. Yeah, let's see how you're doing later on in the episode. Okay.
Yeah.
Not doing so great, are you?
He's gonna learn about life and death real soon.
Yeah, and Anissa's saying force of nature equals going against their own nature, go forward with their mission across the Mississippi River. Right. And not only that, going against I love this idea of, like, when Elton's dad sits him down, like, just right at the end of the flashback, and his mom has to go into the university for a meeting. They sit down together and they're like, you know, they're dusting off the what are they called, fossils?
Yeah.
Right, and he says to go with the grain, which, you know, if you think about it, like shaving with the grain instead of against the grain, you know, going against the grain, the idea of, you know, going against what's natural. And so there's this idea going on where his dad is just, they keep flipping back and forth between who is the tiger and who is the lamb. And you see, like, his dad is talking about terrifying things, but in a beautiful way, or beautiful things that are terrifying. And then his mom goes, you know, here, touch Esmeralda's belly. You know, this is like the lamb part. You know, this is the beauty of creation, of you know, the same God that creates terrifying and beautiful things creates babies. And so, but then, you know, going with the grain, what Nisa's saying is kind of important, like how Elton's fighting this battle both in the present and, you know, and in a way what he knows in the past, like everything that he's been taught, go with the grain, go with the flow, don't rock the boat. You know, nature's terrifying, but it's also beautiful. And, like, I'm out here to see everything that's beautiful and terrifying. But also at the same time, you know, we have to do whatever we can to survive, survival imperative, that sort of thing. Let's go with the flow. Like, just because we're all meant to break down doesn't mean we have to, or try not to. So there's, like, a logic flaw here that he's trying to deal with as well. You know, to cap that off, like, Nisa says, if he can learn about departures, he can learn about arrivals. Like how an entire species ceases to be with another perpetuation of the species coming about, namely Esmeralda. But I don't know. So what were your thoughts during that scene too? Like in and around that scene where he's in the past with his dad? Like, any things that pop out at you?
Well, I like that we find out he named his sister. You know, he's the one that gave her the name Esmeralda. And I don't know if we heard it before this episode. I mean, he's obviously referred to his sister, but I don't know if we heard her name until now, which I thought was kind of cool. And the look on his parents' faces, and they're like, "Oh,
I don't think they heard it
we'll
before."
Talk about that, yeah, exactly. We'll talk about that.
Can you believe this kid?
And it's the Triceratops horn that they're working on at that bench too. Those were probably the two things that jumped out at me most. And then as they're dusting it off, we hear like the sirens and the alarms and stuff coming through the radio. His dad says to Amelia when she gets the message about having to go to her meeting, and he says, well, just be careful. There's been some police activity. And I mean, it kind of lets us know that, the apocalypse has happened. Like things are going on out there right now, and they're right at the beginning of it. So I thought that was really cool. I liked seeing early in the day of the night the sky fell, I guess.
Right. Yeah, early in the day, as things are already in progress, which kind of reminds me a little bit about Fear the Walking Dead. I mean, it didn't happen all at once. Like, you get the video, like, the day before that they're watching. Oh, they tried to put down this dude that the whatever. Like, it was like this one random shot of a helicopter.
Like the highway video.
Yeah, exactly. On the highway, going after the ambulance technician or something like that. And then the cops had to put him down. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, like, the next day, it keeps going. People are going to school, but noticeably see kids less absent, less present or attending in the classroom. And it's like, okay, all right. I know there's a lot of freaky shit going on. So I wanted to go back to Sharondy's comment saying, the mom's name is Amelia, and it means work in the context of procreation and fertility. So, like, the process of procreation and fertility. So I like that because the father's name is Isaac, and we've heard that name before. And again, we have this little interesting, weird tie to Fear the Walking Dead, at least in name. But also, Isaac is in the Bible as well. His father's Abraham. And what Isaac is mostly known for is what in Hebrew is called Akedat Yitzchak. What does that mean? It's the offering of Isaac to the Lord as when he's a child, the sacrifice. At the last second, obviously, Abraham does not commit to this thing, because God says, whoa, stop, good enough, let's move on. But there's this weird, interesting thing going on where Isaac here is sacrificing Elton in a weird way. Like, he's not sacrificing, but like sparing Elton. He's putting Elton away in a box and offering himself up. Isaac is offering himself up. Weird kind of like turnaround. And as you see by the end of the episode, he really did keep his promise. He stood outside the door, he turned and made sure that nobody would be able to enter this door that he locked from the outside. So it made me sad on the second watch.
That hit really hard. Watching him in the hallway staring at his dad was, yeah, like I said, every time I cried in this episode, it was because of baby Elton.
Baby Elton. But yeah,
I know.
Yeah, and it's but like, even just thinking about what it must have been like to be Isaac, like his dad. And yet, by the way, when you start hearing all the noises, you realize at some point the military does come in, or this, I'll get to exactly what they're called. One thing I noticed about when young Elton was in the box was that I think he uses the Triceratops horn to mark the days.
I saw that too.
And I think it's 3. Did you see something different?
It was 3. It has to be 3. No, a human can't survive 3 days without water. He'd be dead.
More science.
7 days without food, 3 without water.
Oh, good. God damn, that kid. Anyway, so
I did see marks, and I thought, oh God, he better get out today.
He's at the end of his rope too. So I noticed that, and just as he's doing that, they do bust into the room, and I thought it was noticeably interesting how he didn't come out still. Like, something about it he did not trust. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting about even that is that it made me like think back to how smart that was in the end, because even when you go back to The Walking Dead, the OG series, like the military does bust into the hospital. There are bullet holes on the wall. I remember watching the opening scene for The Walking Dead, the pilot, and noticing the bullet holes on the walls and stuff like that. And then you could easily have written that off as, okay, the whatever policing is in that building is just trying to hold off the zombies. But at the same time, I'm starting to think now, they're just taking this and building it up a couple levels. Like, what if these civil defense units were coming into these places to not only neutralize a threat, but also to kind of proclaim dominance? Mm-hmm. And then as you notice that the thing that gets him to flash back to his youth, or to the night the sky fell, essentially, or the day the sky fell, is seeing that body in the warehouse where they're trying to fish for boat parts or something that could make up a boat. And he sees the corpse on the ground, and that reminds him of his dad, obviously, by the end of it, right? But as you look behind him, and as he's about to flash back, I notice the holes at the side of this warehouse where the light's pouring in. And I'm thinking to myself, damn, they must have gone, shack to shack, daiquiri town to daiquiri town, shooting up a whole bunch of people. And I'm wondering to myself, like, okay, is there something bigger going on here? Is there something like... was there like some sort of opportunity or power vacuum that, like, is the deep state trying to take control of the U.S.? That sort of thing, like,
Yeah.
And so, like, I often wonder, is like, is what it is something bigger than we think? And so I don't know. These are things that I just make me think, because you still see some like bullet holes in the hallway as Elton is leaving and that sort of thing. So did that kind of enter your mind at all as you were watching this, and then as you're maybe thinking back to previous episodes and series even?
No, that didn't pop into my head. I noticed the bullet holes on the siding when Elton. Why do I keep calling him Elton? When Elton was focused on the walker, but I just thought it was like kind of nice visually, like where these lights were like kind of coming around his head, and it was all sort of dreamy like.
Well, that too.
Yeah, but no, I didn't really. They didn't sink in as bullet holes, I guess, which they should have.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, that's so pretty.
And Charity's saying, I just watched the last episode of season 1, and they showed the army killing the people in the hallway.
Oh yeah, yep, yeah. They weren't rescuing anybody; they were going through, lighting them up. Mm-hmm. I remember that episode.
Can you refresh my memory on that one? Again, I haven't watched it in a long time.
I think it was the same episode where Shane comes in and moves Rick from his hospital room to a different room. Yeah, Shane saved Rick. Yes, yeah, same episode. Mm-hmm.
Oh, Shane's flashback of that pilot.
Yes.
Okay,
yep.
That's where we get that. Okay, 'cause I remember we were talking about that in a previous episode, and I had to cut it up a little bit to where it made sense. But and that's where we get Shane's flashback, because he's at the CDC, if I remember right.
Yes.
Right. So they were going room to room, just lighting people up, just executing people, right?
Yeah, that's what it looked like. Definitely. Mm-hmm.
Right. And this kind of goes to the idea of there's something bigger going on. You could easily isolate even Shane's flashback or Rick's flashback is sort of like, oh, just these sick people are going to die anyway. There's nobody to really help them. People are dying left and right and turning, so we might as well put them out of their misery, right? But then now with this whole expanded narrative with Althea's tape, the one tape she was protecting in Fear the Walking Dead season 5, with the idea of CRM, the military going against the National Guard, that whole thing. Now I'm just thinking they're building this up, with what they've got, the scaffolding they have to be some sort of big narrative. As they're going through Daiquiri Town, and Iris is talking about Silas, about Silas's grandpa liking punk.
Yeah.
And his grandma getting annoyed with it or something.
And his little impersonation of his grandpa.
Yeah, I like the guitar. Anyways, Iris is saying something Huck mentioned about the military blowing up all the bridges when things went bad. Nice how this dovetails to our conversation. Now, was this to keep the threat at bay, or was this also to kind of make sure that people could stay in and they can control people, right? So that's another. So we're playing around with this idea, and every single time they say something like that, I keep going, is this the CRM? Is this how it was born? Is this the origins of the CRM, how they became to be? And they're erecting the fence at the campfire. You can actually capture something that Amelia's wrote in the book. And she says, to paraphrase Darwin, nature does not favor all equally. And then Elton writes, as an addendum, Maslow's hierarchy is still applicable. And it breaks, and then it shows of the world needs more research. So is Maslow's hierarchy still applicable to all of the world? Does everybody have different needs? What is Maslow's hierarchy? Is that apply to everything and everybody, or does nature just decide what people need? Does it naturally? So because he's wrestling with the idea of, does nature just take over? Do we just follow nature, or why are humans different? Why is Maslow's hierarchy of needs different from person to person? Right? People put certain value on different things. Why do people fight the wind? Why do people fight nature? And so he's wrestling with the idea of, is safety the way to go? Is safety the thing that we need? Or do we fight for something bigger or greater? And do we trick nature? And we find out by the end that there is an element of, okay, yes, we are stupid. We do go against our nature. We are creative. We try to fool nature every which way we can. And sometimes, just sometimes, we can find a path through the wind. I think that's exactly what he says, right?
Yeah.
What a smart kid, too. Like, he really does grasp this idea. Like, going back to something that we were talking about earlier, I seem to be talking a lot. But the idea of the tiger and the lamb, the idea of who is making whom feel more calm. And, you know, the dad talking about how this beautiful thing caused the extinction of the dinosaurs. And then watching his dad be utterly terrified as he's doing his best to keep his son safe, doing his duty anyway, even though he's afraid. The idea of who comforts whom, though. Because I think seeing his dad being utterly terrified, even though he was just trying to do what he was trying to do, putting him in the box, I don't think it helped. As much as he tried not to be afraid for his son, I think seeing his dad, and we can open this up a little bit because I don't know if you want to, but I'll just talk about myself. If you ever seen your dad cry, you can't help but cry. Something about seeing somebody you consider to be like your guardian and your I don't know, even your mom, but you're like your strong figures. But mostly, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just natural for me, but whenever I've seen my dad break down, it just, all of a sudden, I start breaking down. Because it's just watching your dad finally allow himself to get emotional. Gets me emotional.
Yeah.
And so, like, thinking about that, as he's putting him in the box, it carries through. Like, every little thing, every little noise sets him off because it's just, in spite of everything, in spite of holding the horn, it still affects him. But when we get to the present, who is comforting whom? You find out that Elton's mom's words, the last thing he really knows about her, reading all these things matter-of-factly. You know, the wind does always win. You know, and he has volumes and tomes, you know, that he can read if he feels scared. It's his mom, it's the lamb. And yet, she's talking about things that are kind of depressing. And yet, he's reading it in his mom's voice. And the very thing that his mom did not want his dad to talk about, the extinction of a species. He gets like this heaping, you know, canister full of depressing things about how we will end, and it will end sooner than you think. It'll just be, that's the way things go. And yet he finds comfort in that. Mm-hmm. And I just find that just the irony of like seeing the roles switch, and then also, you know, should it have been his mom the entire time talking about extinction? Maybe he would have felt a lot better than when his dad did it. But yeah. But Anise is mentioning also, like, my dad cried after he hit me, and I told him never to look at me again. The first time I remember him crying, powerful moment in my life. You know, I was 8. Yeah. I had a talk like that with my dad prior to his death, and so yeah, there's something about like. Yeah, you've seen these powerful figures and having them affect you, even if you don't want them to affect you, right?
I've only seen my stepdad cry once, and that was at his brother's funeral.
How did it hit you?
It was, I can't really talk about it, but it really hit me hard. I have never, ever seen that man cry. And to know that he can be affected that way was, I don't know, it was scary and maybe relieving all at the same time. Like, to know that he can have those kind of emotions that I've never seen before. It was a relief to know that he could do that, but also scary at the same time. And it's like, oh, you know, if this situation is hitting him like that, how am I going to get through this? How can I get through this if it's doing this to him? Right. What does that mean?
Right. Like, all things fall apart, right? Like, oh, even our paragons, right? But let's take that for a second and move it to Felix. And then move it back to Elton. Because when you see Felix, he's doing everything in his power to be what a man is expected to be. You know, not admitting the truth. You know, oh, I made a promise, I'm going to keep my promise. And just using his fake voice, you know, like, girls, which was noticeably pronounced, by the way, this episode.
He does have this gruff voice, doesn't he?
That he puts on, too.
Yeah, he does. He puts on this voice when he's trying to be Big Brother Felix, you know?
Or like, yes, ultimately Big Brother Felix, but or Big Brother attempting to be Father Felix, more like, right?
Yeah, because parental figure.
Exactly, because by the end of the episode, when he has his little heart-to-heart with Hope, it's different. You do sense the difference, and so
in the second time, right?
The last time,
yeah, right. When he's like, "I need you to know
for what it's worth."
Yeah. Man, what Hope said to Felix, that really got me too. I mean, this was kind of an episode full of like knee jerks, like, oh, like it really gut checks you. Like, yeah, Hope really kind of put it to Felix and like, look, my dad gave you every opportunity to be a part of this family. And it just seems like you don't want to be a part of our family. Like, we were so excited to have you as a brother, and you just basically refused to step into that role.
Right. We kept waiting and waiting for that moment.
Saw it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That moment where you'd become our brother. And look at Felix, like all his life. This is why I wanted to explore him a little bit, because you're talking about somebody whose family rejected him. So you'd think.
Well, I think Felix is acting exactly how he thinks a family should act. This is how he was. This is what a family does for him, right?
Yeah. And so yet he acts the way he acts because he might be afraid that'll happen to him again. That they'll reject him.
Right. If I let these people in, what if they find out they don't like me and just reject me again? Because he's not a blood relative, so they could just say, "Never mind."
Oh yeah. Well, even further, like, oh, these people aren't even my blood, so it's so much easier for them to reject me. Sure. Yeah. I mean, we can understand it too. Like, as frustrating as it must be to really watch this unfold, like, and maybe they could have done it a little bit better. I don't know. And maybe we'll get into it a little bit more eventually, like in some other episode, like why he feels like he doesn't have to be honest. And honesty is a huge factor here, because let's take those feelings about him not being honest with Iris and Hope and bring them back to Elton, because Elton does this interesting thing where it's like an addict, you know? When he gets scared, he defaults back to science, and science basically telling him, fear is basically chemical components that a result of risk, and risk, it's a construct. And so I have the exact quote, but it's not really even that important. But the idea that fear is a redundant, or it's just not necessary. It's a holdover from an earlier time where we didn't really need, when we needed to be aware of our surroundings so we could survive. And now that we know risk and we're aware of risk and we're conscious of them, fear is just, it's just his way of calming himself down. And then reading his mom's manuscript calms him down. It makes him bring things back to perspective. The idea of the endlings, like finding a way to be okay with things, because that's really kind of the way things go. But he says this to Silas, and Silas is not buying it. The thing that Elton doesn't understand, this just goes to show that, like, you can know so much and yet know so little. Silas isn't mad at Elton because he had a moment of weakness going against the group. He's not upset at him for that. He's upset because he just wouldn't admit he was afraid. That's it. If he would have just said that, if Felix would have just said, I wish I could be there to protect them. I gave it up. I didn't want to be there to protect you gals. I wanted to be there to protect your dad. If he would have just said that, I didn't eagerly jump in to protect you two. Not that it sounds great if he said it that way, but I was the one who was originally chosen, Yeah. And I gave that up because your dad told me to, and so they have to be okay. They have to be okay, because if they're not, then I'll feel responsible. And I like that. There's something about, I didn't get it at first. I really didn't. I wrote it down. I still didn't get it. I didn't get it till just now. That, like, no, I really didn't. I was like, so what?
They have to be. No, they have to be okay, because if they're not, Felix will blame himself.
Exactly.
It should have been him there.
And there's no time for that shit.
No.
Talk about, like, leaving your shit at the door, Iris says earlier. They have to be, because if not, then I'll start blaming myself. And and then you find this little nugget of what keeps Felix running. It's no wonder why he doesn't shoot for greatness. He's too busy blocking out, like wanting to feel responsible for, like, his parents not loving him. Let's just start with that, because it's just low-hanging fruit. But also, like, he's too busy that people might reject him, period. And he's too busy learning how to survive and teaching others to survive. That sort of thing. And so, now to go back to Silas and Elton, thank you, Nisa. He says, it's okay, we're all afraid. And that's the thing, like, when he trips, this is when Silas finds a way to get it, to get Elton to understand it. When Silas and Elton are hauling ass back to, I'm going to keep bringing this back, hauling ass back to the boat, because the thunder strike, the positive strike, and like, oh, we got to get the heck out of here, because, we're minutes away from being also struck possibly by the storm, which is weird. Elton trips. And when Elton trips, he's just, like, doing everything in his power. Like, I didn't do this on purpose. Like, I know you don't trust me. He's like, no, dude. And Silas is the perfect person to be right there in the scenario, because Silas knows all about what it must mean, what it must feel like to have nobody believe him. And seeing that in Elton, he goes, dude, I believe you. I believe you. Yeah. I know why you did what you did. I just wish you'd be honest about being afraid, you know? Oh, and you know what? That's funny. Like, okay, Charity's bring up in the book, Huck Finn, one of the things Huck is realizing is that Jim the slave is a real person and a real man, not just a slave. It seems that is what's happening with Hope and Felix in this episode. She begins to realize that Felix has his own story and is his own person. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And so, like, the big theme about this book is being honest, and not just. Maybe this episode should have been called The Wrong End of a Telescope, because I feel like if people I laugh because now I'm thinking of that line in The Room with Tommy Wiseau. It's like, if people just love each other, this world would be a beautiful place. You know, like, but I keep wanting to deliver the line. If people were more honest with each other, this world would be a beautiful place.
Yeah, you're not wrong, though. You're not wrong.
Because then we'd all understand each other. Like, we all know with what we're dealing with and what we can do to possibly combat it, right? Right, Huck is constantly doing something to fix the situation, but ultimately making it worse, Charity says. It just goes to show that, like, once Hope and Felix have that little heart-to-heart by the end, Felix and Hope have a brother-sister moment, finally, because of all the talking about how... And let me just stress, I love it how Iris is the one to really... How each sister has its own strength and weakness. So Iris is the one that says, look, I'm not mad at you. I get you. I get why you feel the way you do. I just want you to say it out loud. You know, I'm not even, she doesn't even say that she's disappointed when Felix jumps to the end saying, you're disappointed, blah, blah, blah. No, she says no, but she doesn't say no, but she kind of just moves on. She goes, I get you, but just say it out loud. Some people just want to hear the whole story. Not that you're responsible and you have a job to do and you do. No, we don't need that. We have a parent. And even my parent was willing to admit out loud that, you know, when they're scared or when they're proud and when they're not, or to say, you know, like, you know, we know he was disappointed, but he always did his thing. Where he found a way to kind of tell us he still loved us. We're still waiting for that for you, Felix, you know?
Right.
So when we finally get to the end, yeah, and Hope and Felix have this brother-sister moment, it's like, your sister, you and your sister are stubborn as shit. And she goes, look who's talking. Huck says this is good for us, that it'll turn us into people that we're supposed to be. And Felix retorts, we'll see. Mm-hmm. And so I realize at this moment when Iris kind of just knocks him over the head with just some truth and saying, you know, you gotta just, sometimes as a brother, you just have to admit when you're scared, because Iris and me, Hope and me, we do that all the time. We're real with each other. We give each other the middle finger all the time when we're upset with each other, but also tell us to grin girl. We're constantly communicating. And so why don't you just start doing that? And we can maybe actually see what's on the other side. And here's the thing. Two things happen at the same time. While Felix is fighting off the walkers and they're trying to get the boat in the water, Hope at the very last minute, I think, and you tell me if you feel the same way as me, I think Hope immediately understands what Felix is trying to talk about. That she calls it off. She says, look, it's not worth it. If we're not even around to be able to continue on, this boat ain't worth shit. You know, let's abandon it. We could still survive and move on, which is a little ironic because Elton's been constantly battling in his head about survival versus ambition and the idea of meaning and doing something more greater with your life.
Right.
And so just as Hope is giving up hope, Felix comes in with a fulcrum, you know, like something to help them lodge the boat into the water as they push. And I just feel like it couldn't have happened at a better time for her to just understand, which allowed them to have that heart-to-heart in the end, you know. And so I feel like it's funny, Huck's words kind of ring out in my ears about how being out here changes us, because I feel like there's this weird reversal. When Felix says, we'll see, I see that as an admission. I don't know about you, that maybe we can move on and maybe we can save your dad.
Yeah, could be. I also noticed while he says that, he's eyeing up Huck. So
right.
I took that as foreshadowing. I don't know of what, but that was what I saw.
Right. And then when they have that conversation later, Huck and Felix,
right.
I feel like they just like moved across each other like ships in the night. Like all of a sudden Huck is starting to think See, this is what killed me, is like Huck is now talking about divide and conquer. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering what that means. Because then she just moves immediately on to her plan, which is I'm going to scout ahead, which I think she's moving on to plan B, right? Am I not mistaken?
She said she had a plan B, but we don't know what it is, right? She didn't actually come out and say what it was.
Oh, no,
we do?
We sort of do. Plan B, they mentioned in the beginning. Plan B was supposed to be the following. Why don't you take the boys back to Campus Colony, ultimately? And me and the girls will move on to New York. This is what I didn't understand at first too. And then I literally had to read the words and write them down and be like, oh, I see. And this is the divide and conquer tactic. Okay. I don't know if that's 100% really what she's talking about, but if they are dividing and they're splitting the difference, the plan B is basically splitting the difference, saying, okay, maybe we can't get them all back home. Maybe you and the boys can just go back home. And then I can go with the girls move on to, because maybe in a smaller group we can be more effective. You know, we can move on to New York, find out what's going on. I'll bring them home for you. And you can still sort of keep your promise, you know, in a way. But I feel like by the end of the episode, Felix actually wants to be their brother.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't think he had ever realized how Hope and Iris saw him until Hope kind of threw it in his face. Like, he probably this whole time felt like he was acting like a brother. You know, he probably loves them like a brother and felt like he was doing, you know, what he was supposed to be doing as a you know, honorary family member. But Hope throws it back in his face and is like, no, we've been waiting for you to be our brother. And all of a sudden he's like, whoa, okay, I thought I was. Obviously I need to, you know, fix this. I need to let them know that I really do care about them. This is not about fulfilling some promise, but I do care what happens to you.
Right. Now that I've taken this responsibility on, maybe he was just taking it too seriously, and then he didn't. This is the thing, before the promise even occurred, like he was kind of like their brother, but he still wasn't. He was a security officer, busting chops,
right.
You know, so it's like he never really became their brother. And now out here, he can be. Mm-hmm. It does something to you out here. This is why, like, the Huck's words kind of ring out in my head, because, okay, so this is changing him so that he can find a way to be the brother that they always wanted. And I like how Hope just says it out loud. You know, we're just waiting for you to be our brother, and you never arrived. And Nisa says, which is a nod to Huck Finn too, the divide and conquer idea. Tom Sawyer actually with the gang. Yeah.
Okay.
Even from the beginning, Felix did not want to do Plan B. Like, his ideal is to bring everybody home.
Right.
Know?
I don't think it's a good idea to split up. Do you?
I don't either. I don't think
that's a good idea at all. I especially don't like the idea of Huck going off on her own. I mean, no matter how capable you are of protecting yourself, shit happens, man. And if something happens to one person, you just might not ever see him again. I mean, that would be terrible.
Yeah.
Not knowing what happened.
Yeah, not having any means to actually get word back to everybody else, too. Like,
exactly.
And this is the thing that worries me, is that, like, this does kind of go back to, like, the walkers are still dangerous idea. The impression that everybody seems to get about being walker killing machines. Oh, we're already 10 years into the apocalypse. Isn't everybody a walker killing machine? And blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, you can be. And this is where I think Huck's fatal flaw is the idea that, I've mastered this. I know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is going to be her fatal flaw, because, you know, no matter how much shit you've been through, the thing that you're supposed to learn is that you never underestimate the wind. You know, never underestimate the force of nature. And I feel like she's taking that for granted. Like, I've been through this big thing that I've already been through. What else can get? Like, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. But that's not true. That's not true at all. So, like, if cancer hits you, it doesn't mean that you're less sensitive to cancer. No, it means you have to keep going every 6 months and get your cancer screening, make sure you're still in remission, that sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, Huck, why you acting a fool, bitch? But that's because this is the thing I'm trying to reconcile also, like, why Hope decides to go on her own, you know?
I know.
It's the only thing I could come up with, is that, like,
I'm right there with you.
She thinks she's beyond this. It's best I can guess.
But the alternative is what? Take one of the kids with her? I mean, she's not going to take Felix. That would leave the kids totally alone. And the other option would be to take one of the kids with her. That would be even more dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Having to look after someone and yourself.
Yeah, and I wonder, I think ultimately, like, maybe she manufactures a situation where, I almost got it back there. Maybe I could use you girls to go on to, I won't go ahead of you guys, without you. I'll just take two of you girls with me, that sort of thing. And like, and then eventually they'll go, you guys go on back to Campus Colony. I got this with the girls. They got my back. You know, they got my
Right?
back. I learned my lesson. Oh, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever, Huck. I see right through you. You ain't fooling nobody. You ain't no Huck Finn. But by that same token, like, look, I get why she would think this experience that I had floating down the Missouri River.
Mississippi?
Well, she says Missouri. I think that's a portion of the Mississippi River. But she said she was floating down the Missouri. And what she says was, you know, being out here makes you stronger. And, like, you know, what she doesn't tell people... Obviously, they know the nickname of why they call her Huck, because she was floating down the river. They find her, and then they just say, oh, that's kind of just funny. Like, you're half dead, and, you know, you're floating on this raft down the river, and you're like, oh, let's just call you Huck. But then what she doesn't tell them, you know, the kind of gory details of how, like, you know, how many times she felt like she was about to give up, you know, how many times she felt like calling it, you know, just ending it then and there. Paired off with the idea that, like, you know, being out there makes you different, makes you stronger. Yeah. I just feel like there's something about Huck that tells me that, like, that experience of having almost died has to have counted for something. Meaning, like, it had to have given me some sort of right in this world, that sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Well,
purpose, right? I mean, you survive something like that and you come out feeling like, okay, I'm here for a reason. I have something to fulfill.
Yeah,
I have purpose.
It could be that too, yeah. Like, or maybe that's my job. Like, okay, the fact that I made it out of this means that I can ferry these girls, you know, and they'll be protected.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that could be foolhardy too, thinking because I've been through this, I know what I'm doing, and it could definitely, you know, backfire too. So let's hope not.
Right.
But that wouldn't make for very good TV, would it?
Right.
If it didn't.
and so maybe we'll find out how vulnerable she actually is, you know, and I feel like she's playing an interesting game of, like, which is why I'm eager to see more about her past and how that will play into her future and why she feels like she's invulnerable. And again, like, just to kind of reiterate the point, like, this person's been out there for the majority of those 10 years, you know, and they found her, you know, maybe a couple of years ago. Also a nod to Huck Finn not giving up when his father kidnaps him, and instead of giving up and possibly dying by his father's hand, he survives. And all thanks to the Mississippi River. This is Nisa says. And so, yeah, that's the thing. And maybe Huck feels the same way. And Huck does mention her dad too, by the way. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it. You know, like her escaping.
Her relationship with her dad, I think, is going to be a little complicated. It seemed like. I mean, she told Hope that he was proud of her accomplishments, but then she followed it up with, you know, dads have a messed up way of showing that they care.
A funny way of showing it, yeah.
Right. So
so do brothers.
Hopefully we see a little bit more of that. I don't know.
Maybe. Oh, she says a strange way of showing it, Issa points out.
A strange way, yeah, exactly.
Ugh. Now my mind's like going all these different places, and that it doesn't really want to go. So continue on with Amelia Ortiz's monologue. Yet even with a resolute will to survive, nature will end us. See, comforting words, right? Because that is its law. Death, inevitable. Extinction, just another of its rules, another part of the life cycle of the very old world churning with energy. Just as she says this, by the way, you can hear the thunder in the background. There's no escape from the inescapable. There's no respite from the unceasing. It makes its choices for us. That's a big note. In short, accept the wind. It always wins. Very comforting again. You know, there's no escaping it.
Right.
And so in Elton's addendum, and this after everything that happens in this episode, you know, he goes off to the side after having just kind of gone through this terrible ordeal of reliving the idea of being in a box and being underneath the raft and having this, like, crushing moment of, like, remembering what it was like those 3 days. 3 days. So, yeah, Elton writes his addendum to his mom's words. And you can see even in the booklet. In the booklet, it actually shows the words that she narrates in the beginning of this episode. And he writes just after that. He doesn't write, here's the thing. He says it. He starts with, nature accounted for everything about the human race, except our self-awareness. Because we know we can change. We can act in ways that nature wasn't expecting, wasn't ready for. So every now and again, that lets us see the path through the wind, even if it's just for a moment. And sometimes a moment is all you need. And I feel like he's squared that circle in his life. That, like, you know what? As long as we're alive, and as long as we're still human, and as long as we're willing to kind of keep cheating nature, we should because we should take every chance we get to cheat nature, to cheat the inevitable. Yeah, so what did you take away from that, from Elton's addendum?
Well, I liked the idea that his mom wrote this, before the apocalypse, right? So she's basing all of these ideas on theories. Elton gets a real life hands-on experience. He's basically confirming or disproving what's written in there. You know what I mean? And then making other observations as well. I mean, nature has won at this point, right? Nature's won. And the human race is just barely holding on. We're just scraping for what we can, still hold on to. And, Elton gets to see all of that. So, his mom has these theories, and now Elton gets to see them play out in action. I like that idea. That was kind of what I took from all of this. And like you said, he keeps making all these notes in there, and like, well, here's what she said and here's what I've observed, type of deal.
Like the Maslow's hierarchy like needs. It. Yeah.
Yeah. Like this whole thing of before and after, theories and answers, really.
Yeah. To Elton, my little explorer, the little forward.
Right.
Nisa says.
Yeah, that made my heart jump.
But it's true though. Like he ends up being his mom's, or maybe that's the driving force of him to kind of see what's out there, is that little forward, right? Finishing his mom's story, as Charity says also. So that's the thing. What I start to come to realize also is that something that we just don't, like if we just read the story and watch this episode as is, you start to realize, okay, no, in some ways, yes, she's right, 100%, right? End is inevitable, all these things. We know all this. We do. Right. I mean, we don't like to be reminded of it because we like to think we're a lot more than the sum of our parts and the inevitable thing that gets us all, right? Because if we kept thinking about that, then we wouldn't be able to do. So this is the burden of being a conscious person, to have these thoughts, to know, to plan for the future is the one defining feature that humans have that makes us human. To plan for the future. No animal in history, nothing in the natural world has that. And that separates us from everything else. So one of the things to keep in mind is that with all this talk about nature being that force that always wins, and it's a force to be reckoned with, the one thing that we didn't take into account is that nature is also kind of a bitch because it created zombies. Or maybe we did, who knows? But the whole idea is that, nature's trying to fuck with us, now we have to do our best to fuck with nature too. Because like nature gave us no choice. Like we could, maybe it goes back to Morgan's speech too. That little monologue in the last episode.
People changing. Right.
People had to decide for themselves whether or not they wanted to change. And sometimes they did. Sometimes it worked. Maybe not much. Maybe not for long. Maybe they went back to their ways. But, people tried. People tried to make themselves better. But this thing gave us no choice. We either died or adapted. And so she wrote all this before the virus out, before the zombie outbreak, right?
Right.
And so she didn't get the middle finger that nature gave us, that we had to adapt. And furthermore, like, okay, there's survival. And then there's the idea of finding meaning and purpose. Like, it's one thing to survive, but another thing to find a reason to live, a reason for being, a reason to move on, like to thrive rather than just survive, right?
Mm-hmm. So we've heard before, surviving is not living. It's not thriving. Right,
exactly. So it's, Nisa says, accept the wind, right? This is the last bit of Amelia's first quote. And it's like, no, like, it's not enough. It's not enough. Like, there's no riding this wind. There's just, cut your throat? Like, what, do we just get bit? Is that the lesson? No, I mean, nature gave us no choice. So fuck you, nature. Fuck you. Sometimes we have to take that chance. Sometimes we have to find that moment in the wind and cut through and decide, let's go back to Elton in the first episode. We are the masters of our fate. How do we form our fate? Health, friendship, honesty, integrity. Isn't that weird? Like, he has the answer in his karate. He just needed to actually be able to reach it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love it's like so ironic, okay, but this is just in relation to karate, right? To protect yourself, No, we're the master of the situation. We'll be able to handle it. Redirection. Oh, Morgan. Anyway, sorry. But but nature told us that we have to fight back. We have to, so this is Nisa saying, so this is the honesty episode. Yeah. So where's the integrity episode? Yeah. Oh, that's next episode. Friendship. Isn't that funny how like the whole premise of the show probably is stemming from Elton's chant, that sort of thing.
Oh, sure.
I kind of like that. I also kind of wanted to bring it back to the beginning because, like, when we talk about the Ivy and the panning out and looking at Daiquiri Town, did you connect a little bit the animals that were portrayed in the video a little bit to our characters?
Like the tiger and the toucan?
Tiger, the toucan, the great ape.
Oh, I didn't see. I only saw the tiger and the toucan.
So there's a tiger and there's a toucan. There's a great ape and there's a snake.
When I see a tiger, I'm gonna think of Shiva every time. So.
Well, see, the only thing that confuses me is like who's the tiger, who's the gorilla, who is the snake, and who is the toucan. And I wonder who's who. Like, I want to say the toucan, the toucan is Iris a little because follow your nose like Fruit Loops.
I know. I was going to say the only reference I have to a toucan is Fruit Loops. I don't know much about toucans.
Exactly, I don't either. And see, here's the thing, Sharon. I wanted to say Silas was the gorilla too, but like considering that episode, The Tiger and the Lamb, I kind of want to say the tiger is Silas. Do you know what I mean? Like that terrifying, beautiful force.
Yeah.
Or Hope. I guess maybe it could be Hope because remember we did reference her as the tiger also. Like. Yeah. Burns the thing of muck. Would
you consider Felix the snake then?
No,
since he's trying to.
My first gut instinct.
To turn around?
Yeah, maybe, but I actually my gut instinct when I first saw that was like, oh, Hope is the snake. Adaptable. Kind of fuck you and everything. That sort of thing.
Shed her skin and turn into someone else when she needs to.
Yeah,
she's my little psycho.
Yeah, my little psycho. Hope is the snake. Charity said. Nisa
and that
says.
Total. My little psycho, I feel like, is even more confirmed at the end when they play that psycho music over top of what she's looking at. And I'm just like,
oh, when?
The music at the very end, the very, very end, when Hope sees the picture of Amelia and it clicks.
Oh, yeah, that little,
she is.
With the little.
And they play that music. Yeah. And I'm like,
and the little, oh, do you know that? I forget what that instrument is called when they use a violin bow. Against these metal tines, dear, like a little squeaking noise. Yeah, I've only seen that used like in horror movies, and also I've seen it used on stage by Imogen Heap. But it does have a distinct noise. But Sharon D says something. Who's the daiquiri?
Who's the daiquiri?
Huck.
The daiquiri.
We both said Huck. But then who's the great ape? Yeah. I was thinking like maybe Elton, but like just because it makes sense. Oh, the great, we are descended of the great ape. Like.
Oh God. Yeah.
So I don't know, but it's just fun. So you said Felix is the great ape. Guys, we have to. I'm Felix. I'm your brother. Anyway, whatever.
I don't know if any of them really fit into a great ape.
Or we can easily take the cop-out route in saying, it's all of them. They all have each of these qualities.
Sure.
Sure. Milk toast fence sitters, all of us. We have never have anything bad to say about the show. We're always cheerleaders. Sorry, I'm venting my own thoughts right now. The show's awesome. There's nothing we can critique it about at all.
I do. I feel like that sometimes. I'll even stuff that will irritate me. I will try to justify even before I even bring it up. But it's funny you say that because if we didn't have the conversation when we did the first episode of this and we were talking about, you had mentioned how sometimes they film out of order.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had the thought I did had you not planted that seed in my head. But watching this episode, I almost felt like this was the one they recorded first.
Let me think on that for a second. Oh my God, that actually makes sense. A lot of sense.
I felt it most with Hope.
Why did you feel it most with Hope?
Well, I don't know. I just felt like this episode to me, she was still trying to sort of figure out her character. Like even the voice that she's using to deliver lines in this episode, it sounded different to me than the first 3 episodes. She sounded more comfortable and confident. And in this one, it was, I felt like I could feel her. Well, I felt like I could feel her trying to figure it out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I'm trying to struggle at which lines in particular. Like maybe when she decided to pull back on the boat. Well, a little of that.
I think I noticed it mostly when she confronts Elton. Like that whole scene where she's supposed to be really upset and it comes off more awkward.
Yeah, like you want to double time it, like, or maybe it doesn't require that much connection. Like she's just blanket upset.
Maybe, but then Felix joins in, and then she gets in Felix's face, and I don't know. It felt like there wasn't quite a connection between those two characters yet, even though we have seen them so far. I felt like this could have been the first one they filmed.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have thought that had you not put that seed in my head.
Now I kind of want to wonder. I want to research if maybe we'll have it next episode, but like I wonder which one's filmed at which time. Like how, because it doesn't even have to be the episode. It could be just scenes. So maybe there's some scenes where they filmed afterwards, and I don't know. But I did want to read Sharon D's comment about how in Latin a tiger is Felis, which Felix the tiger. Yeah, and Nisa's even saying.
Nisa is agreeing with me. Yeah, she was definitely more comfortable in the previous episodes. I felt like that too. Yeah. And I don't think I would have noticed it if I didn't know that they film out of order like that. Yeah. And
especially like, okay, forget about Hope for a second. Like just going on Felix's. I'm Felix, sir. I speak like this, sir. I have to pretend to be, and I'm Felix. Yeah. Like, yeah. He sounds like a caricature of like Team America, like fuck yeah, Team America, Felix. Like what? Yeah. What are you doing, man? God, be an actor. Be an actor, goddammit.
See, but I don't remember hearing the gruff voice in the previous episodes. Like this, like almost like is this how Felix talks? I'm gonna,
Yeah.
But then it didn't work, so then he changes the voice a little bit. I don't know.
I'm tweaking my voice. You do hear it in the last episode too, like when they're caricaturing him.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
The first step is avoidance. I heard that. I heard that, Iris, sir. Like what? Yeah, but that's the tell. Because you don't get as much of that, even when he's like teaching lessons. Like I feel like we got the caricature first. So we got the lessons in the second episode. In the flashbacks when Iris is trying to take down the walker. But those lessons were kind of like, you want to do avoidance. Yeah, I'm Felix. Felix is teaching you right now. Felix has a good voice. I found it. I found my voice. And so like, and then you go to this episode and it's like, yeah, Felix, fuck yeah. But that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, that's the tell. Like Hope acting like a teenager and going, fuck you, I don't like you, fine. Whatever. I get that. That makes sense. There's not much depth into being upset, like in that teenager, like, fuck you went against me. What do you mean, Huck?
She even, when her and Huck are walking down the beach, she even like kicks the dirt a little bit. Did you just see her? She like stomps her foot.
Yeah, I love these choices, like little, but that's a good touch, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a teenager.
Keeps the stand.
I'm so embarrassed for you.
Right. Oh my gosh. So I'm so glad you said that. Silas got a pair of those sunglasses trick-or-treating last night.
Oh.
Some house was handing out those sunglasses.
Did he wear it on top of his leather face? Because I would hope he did. What a missed opportunity.
They're probably still in his bag.
Did you say I'm so embarrassed for you, Silas?
I did. I should have, but I was just trying to hustle him away from the house. There were other kids waiting.
I feel so embarrassed for you.
Right?
Let's move on.
Heck no, I'm stealing those glasses.
Oh, let's do that. But you have to ask permission first. It's his now.
That's true. No, he won't care.
He won't.
The name of the episode, Madman Across the Water,
right,
is an Elton John album.
Oh, does this also relate to Huck Finn?
No. Because I just thought it was funny that it was an Elton John album, and this song or this episode was about Elton.
What? It's weird because there's not many people named Elton. So when you said Elton John, I didn't even think about Elton. Do you know what I mean? Like it was. I didn't connect the two names being the same. Like Elton John is just this entire being named Elton John. Right. Elton John, not Elton. Yeah. Elton John.
Exactly. I also thought it was funny that.
But how does the song relate?
It doesn't. It's about a madman.
Because Nisa saying the song relates
to Elton John, though. Are you saying the episode relates to Elton John himself or the song? I didn't think there. I listened to the song. I didn't really think there was all that much.
he's saying his dad. Wait, but Rocket Man was.
Rocket Man was.
Oh, it was Elton John.
Yeah, Rocket Man was was Elton John, but it was not on this album. Tiny Dancer was on this album.
Oh, Elton's a tiny dancer. He's dancing, he's stomping across our hearts.
She's saying there's a lot of nods to Elton John because Elton's dad in the Meteor, with the Rocket Man, Elton John.
Right. Exactly. This week's episodes are Elton and John, or Reginald Dwight. You're gonna have to elaborate. Oh. She means for Fear the Walking Dead. Okay, gotcha.
Oh. Also, this was the 5th episode of World Beyond, and this album was released on November 5th.
Oh, get out.
That's a reach.
But it wasn't originally intended to be.
The 5th episode? Is that what you mean?
Well, oh yeah, but it wasn't supposed to be. Yeah, it was supposed to be back in April. We were supposed to get these episodes, but it's odd that we're getting it around November now. Talking about songs, one of the big songs that happens when they're trying to build the raft is
"Meaning of a Songbird Calling" by Doc Robinson.
It starts off, "Feel the sun come slowly, makes the window glow like an old friend round the dead end." So like, playing with your friends. So like, there's like nostalgia. Like there's a thing of the past. You see Elton look at his life beforehand with his dad, etc. All I need is a place to dream, and all I need is clouds beneath my feet. So they're trying to find this sense of like, of this purpose of like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. They swing, and sudden breezes through the leaves and leaves me breathless. Say you're living by faith. You can get in my head. See the color of your clear eyes. So like, these people are like living on a prayer, basically. You can get in my head and see the color of your clear eyes. So like, they resolute. Like, this is what I know we have to do. Influence me. Be the thing that's going to get me to do the thing that brings my life joy. Right. You can fall asleep in a cave of dreams. Paint the morning's paint. Cross endless streets that go twisting off like blades of grass or strands of a bracelet. But new, but we're ancient. But we're trying, but we're faking. But we're real, but we're vacant. The river just goes and no way to tame it. 'Cause nothing is sacred. All form is shapeless. Nothing can change it. All roads are aimless. So it's like, you have to decide what you want to do, because we can sometimes fake it till we make it. Sometimes we can pretend that we're real, but we're actually vacant. And like, the river just goes where it wants to go because there's no way to tame it. So we have to figure out how we want to use it. Nothing is really sacred. All form is really shapeless when you really decide, when you figure out what matter is, like the idea of matter, solid, liquid, gas, whatever. Nothing can change it, and all roads are aimless. But like, I like this idea that like, okay, literally all we can ever do is decide how we want to live our lives. How do we form our fate, right? We are the masters of our fate.
Very fitting, yeah. Goes to what Elton's mom is saying too, right? Don't fight nature.
Right, and yet, the thing about the song is like, look, this is nature, but do what you can to get me to do more than what nature says I should do. Because, we can realize that we're faking it, but we're really, everything's empty, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. But, get me to believe. Because I want to believe. I want more than just what this song is outlining. But I also like the idea of the songbird, too. Because the songbirds, you have to realize another thing that really kind of plays this song, unbeknownst to the song, by the way, that the dinosaurs that we're all envisioning were scaly, reptilian kind of creatures. It's said that a lot of them, that they actually had feathers. Right? Feathers, birds, winged birds, even like the T-Rex probably had feathers all over it. What's interesting about that is that most birds died out except for songbirds. Songbirds are actually the dominant of the avian species.
I did not know that.
Yeah, hawks and bald eagles, when bald eagles are basically going extinct, hawks, vultures, I mean, they're carrions, which means they can survive because they eat their own species, like we were talking about. And yet, songbirds thrive. They eat everything except for their own. They can eat, bugs and grubs and all that stuff. They can survive on that. Those birds, they don't really do that. They eat meat, they eat flesh, etc. So, and who are the songbirds? These kids. They're making beautiful music. Unbeknownst to them, that's their way of surviving. There's like a weird thing going on here, right? See, and he's saying raptors had feathers. Exactly. So this is the thing. Like where all other birds die out, the songbird somehow won. Is that nature? Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, is that how nature intended it? Probably not. This useless ancillary call that doesn't really do much, and yet they somehow win. So I don't know. There's just something to that song. I thought that was a very
something right.
let's go straight back to the end of the episode when we see Elton kind of move on, right? He sees his dad in the hallway, looks back, and he's ready to move on. He steps outside the steps of the Nebraska Museum of Natural History. Yeah, that's right. The first sign that you see outside the thing is the ever-complex relationship between predator and prey.
Predator and prey, right?
Visit.
I had to write that down, too.
Visit.
Like, how perfect.
Exactly. Visit Insectarium and watch a live feeding at 4 p.m. every afternoon. And then it's a picture of a praying mantis. I wish I had time to really look up what praying mantises are and are the relationship, but I didn't have time. Whatever. I hear they're not as dangerous as they look.
Right. No, I mean, yeah, no. I know what everybody else knows, and that's their mating habits, so.
Yeah, Sharon is saying the songs are for procreation, and Lisa's saying aliens.
Aliens.
That's what they are. Praying mantises are aliens. I want to go over the public alert evacuation mandate. So I'm going to read it out, and then we're going to talk about it. But the big thing that we're going to want to talk about is the emblem on it. So public alert evacuation, mandatory evacuation plan. The public's vulnerability to the outbreak is undeniable. This sounds like 2020, by the way. Many resources are invested in this problem, and a solution will be found. It is important to follow the directions from the U.S. Military Command. Evacuation orders are as follows. Report to your nearest shelter immediately. Your nearest shelter is listed on the map below. Now wait. Off to the right, there is a 162.4 megahertz signal for people to kind of lock onto, and this is provided by, it's a symbol. There's a C and a D with a kind of like an inverted C on one side and an actual C on the other, and then like a triangle in the background. I looked that up. Okay. It's a variation on the U.S. Civil Defense emblem.
Oh, okay.
Now, what is that? Check this out. Remember we were talking about the propaganda posters in Kublek's office? Well, it was heavily active in the U.S. during World War II and the Cold War, and it prepared civil volunteers, I spelled that wrong, to assist in the event of an invasion of the U.S. soil or attack by atomic weaponry. Each state had its own U.S. Civil Defense Force, let's say, right?
Okay.
So it's not like the National Guard. These were volunteers. So it's just kind of like a neighborhood watch on a bigger scale.
Okay, all right.
So state by state, right? Now, let's read the rest of the thing. Please only bring water, good shoes, and your ID. It is important you stay calm and follow directions. Now, like there's a red zone also on the right, which probably indicates no mas. It's no good.
I'm guessing that red zone is probably the building that Elton is in. Somewhere in that red zone, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Where he's.
It's entirely possible. This kind of goes to show that this could be the birth of the Civic Republic military. For
sure.
Right?
I mean, especially as you're saying, they're all volunteers just kind of coming together to form, this safety unit. They're going to take charge and decide how to keep people safe. Whew, that's scary. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you have to wonder, if the National Guard and the military did square off, which military, which National Guard, is it the National Guard and military? Maybe this, and you know what? Maybe the military and the National Guard finished each other off. And from the ashes came the U.S. Civil Defense, which rebranded itself as a Civic Republic military, and they kind of just took over, and further to the point, they probably found it's their own, they all kind of got together and formed their own small pocket or whatever they were going to end up being.
So do you think the Civic Republic military was born before the Civic Republic, not the other way around?
Yeah, why not? The Civic Republic military
kind of how it's playing out, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how it looks like. It's like we were born of military first, and then we scrounged up whatever we could in whatever pocket we wanted to live in, and that became our society. And we molded society in our own image. We made it happen. It
makes sense that they could keep control of their community a lot better that way too, if they started out as, a military community.
Right.
And we're like, if you want protection, you follow our rules or adios. And
then here are some pretend things that we're going to invent over the course of 10 years to kind of at least imitate some sort of free society, right? Mm-hmm. Or because you need to kind of, it's kind of like some of all these movies. You remember when they were talking about the Matrix and, when we first created the Matrix, we made it look like heaven. And yet people were still not satisfied. So you kind of had to invent, kind of model it after real life to kind of give people obstacles and things to overcome, sadness, misery, etc. So this is kind of like what the Civic Republic military kind of latches onto, the idea of well, okay, let's give you some, like, you know, the fascia of, like, of freedom, the illusion of free speech, or the illusion of, like, freedom, and yet, you know already that there is none. But we'll at least let you play around with these little fake toys. See, the last thing that we end up seeing is that Iris is moseying off to kind of kill that empty, but that empty ends up being a human. Now, when I first saw this, tell me what you thought it was, who you thought it was first.
Gareth.
Gareth from, like, Terminus?
Yeah. I mean, I know he's dead, but that's kind of who he reminded me of.
I actually thought it was, Barca for a hot sec.
Oh,
right?
No. Okay.
Kind of like in the darkness, what you could see from him, but if you immediately after you see, like, the sneaks into the next episode, clearly is not him.
Right.
But one thing that we did say in just the last episode is, like, and this is, again, my false pretenses of, like, okay, there can't be anybody out here because anybody out here is either dead, not, you know, in campus colony or something like that. After 10 years, how long can people live out on their own? You know, Hope almost half dead, going down the raft, the Mississippi River. You know, it's hard. It's hard out here to live an extended period of time. So here I'm thinking, like, oh, but when will they meet other people? And now we start to.
Yep. I have a feeling I'm gonna probably be bitching a lot next episode. I was already not happy with the snakes. I was yelling at Iris, and I haven't even watched the episode yet.
But you were yelling at Iris just about this one thing. Like, it's like, I got this.
Yes.
Not uncommon refrain, by the way. I had another user on Twitter say that.
Her wanting to help someone. We don't do that. Don't do that.
That. Okay. I was even before the episode ended, I was just kind of like, Iris, like, Silas says, I got your back. And it's like, no, I got this. I'm like, did we learn nothing? Right.
Yeah. Like, Iris needs to learn to let the people around her help her. Stop thinking that you have got this. They have to be just because you're the leader. Like, don't be like your brother. Being a good leader means being able to delegate as well. You know?
Yeah.
So,
exactly. Don't be like Captain Kirk, you know, I'm going to go down to the surface. No, that's against the rules. You know, word up.
I have a feeling Iris and I are not going to get along next episode. I can tell you already.
But you know what? All of them technically go along for the ride. So it's like, you want to blame Iris, but at the same time, well, maybe this whole thing will get everybody to kind of, like, turn on Iris.
Oh my gosh. We'll see.
Should you be the leader? Should you? And it could be one of those things where, like, Huck, this is the wedge that gets Huck, you know, to take the girls with her and lead herself, right? Who knows?
Did you see Huck in the sneak peeks?
No, I didn't.
I don't remember.
Like,
okay.
I'm assuming that she makes it back, first of all. But second of all, like, you know, as a result of meeting with people. Like, this will get her. I was kind of assuming
we wouldn't see Huck next episode because she's still out scouting. And then I thought, if Huck were there, she would probably be the one to tell them not to trust people. You know?
Exactly.
Don't do this.
Isn't that interesting? Like, even Felix would be susceptible to this because he's been behind walls. And he's just saying, Huck is fine, just saying.
She's fine. She's fine.
But, like, I'll be yelling next week, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, these people, like, have been around people all their lives. And even though people do suck, these people don't tend to think of other people as deadly. Like, The Walking Dead is really people. They haven't been out here long enough to even discover that. Right.
That's why I'm like, no! They're going to have to find out the hard way.
Yeah. Oh, that's going to be their lesson for today. Felix, that is not going to be one of Felix' lessons plans. Because, like, the truth is, they can find out all they can about walkers in a classroom, but they're not going to really learn about people and how this has changed them. Huck knows, though, and that's the irony about her being away.
Exactly.
It's a school of hard knocks. The thing is that how are they going to do this in a way that really doesn't protect them against, like, because you know what? Things have got to go bad. And who's going to be the first casualty? You know, is it Felix because he gets that resolution with Hope, his sister? You know?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll see, like, a real serious injury first, don't you? Or do you think they'll just hit us right away with a death?
Whether it's metaphorical or actual.
No, like an actual physical injury, like a really close call. Or do you think they'll just hit us right away with a big death?
First of all, I don't think anything. I don't know. I'm wary because, like, if they don't do that, like, and of course they're going to find another way to show how dangerous this was or this possibly was without having to do that. Probably that's what I'd probably have to say is like, oh, we're going to think this, we're going to think that, we're going to think nobody dies. Well, but they're going to show us in a different way what it's like to actually help people in this world, and that it doesn't always go the way we think it's going to go. And Nisa says, Silas will smash the enemy. I'm like,
That's right.
But Silas isn't invulnerable, right?
That's true too, though. I mean, I am all prepared for this new person. In my mind, first of all, he's a liar. I don't believe the new guy.
Oh, the new guy. Okay.
The new guy. I don't believe him. I think he's a liar. I think he's trying to get our people into a situation.
Oh, you know what his name is, by the way? We said it earlier.
Yeah, you said it, but I don't remember.
Percy.
That's the character or the actor?
The character.
Is Percy?
Yeah.
Oh, that poor kid.
Short for Percival.
I know.
I don't know if that means anything. Why?
I could have called him Perry.
Wait, well, why is that
really?
significant? Yeah, Percival.
Honestly, Scrubs is on TV right now, and that's
okay.
Percival Cox is
Dr.
on the
Perry.
screen.
Short for Percival.
It is Percival Ulysses Cox.
Interesting, though. Sharon says, I don't know if there's any significance to this, but Elton's hand was bandaged just like Silas's was. But we saw Hope's hand get bandaged as well in this episode because the wrench breaks or something and her hand gets cut or something like that.
Is that why she couldn't go under and fix whatever needed to be fixed? Because when they were talking about who's small enough to get under there, everybody turns and looks at Elton, and I'm like, hello, isn't Hope just as skinny? Why couldn't she go do it? You know, the person without claustrophobia.
That's a great bone to pick too, because but who is smaller, Elton or Hope? I think Hope is actually a little bit...
She might be taller, but I would bet she's maybe skinnier, or at the very least, close enough.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting is that they probably thought, and this is something that Nicholas Cantu also... Nicholas Cantu also mentions this, is that, you know, he kept growing throughout the season. And so I think originally, classically, he was smaller than all the others.
Oh, like physically? Like actually
physically
growing?
Smaller. But when it came time to film the scene, I think, is just, you know, he grew and...
Oh, wow.
I think they just decided to use him anyway. But again, like, you know, without that scene, you wouldn't get this weird flashbacks and stuff like that. Yeah. So, you're forced to let it go. But I also think that he was technically smaller when they figured all the casting out, and then he just started to grow. He even mentions, like, how many different suits he busted out of. And had to keep making bigger and bigger suits. Yeah.
How old is Nicholas Cantu? That's crazy. I'm quite claustrophobic as well, so watching him in that scene, both in the box and under the boat, and then as soon as he started yelling that he was stuck, my heart started pounding really hard. And I'm like, somebody get him out!
He's 5 and 5 3/4 now.
He's 5'5"?
Yeah. He's taller than
I
now.
am. Yeah.
He is 17 years old.
17, called it. Well, that makes sense then, why he's growing so fast.
What a difference a year makes.
Yeah, Sharon D, I think you make a good point. The fact that he doesn't bring up Pluto as a planet, that kind of...
I wrote that down too.
Yeah, that kind of supports how we were wondering if this all went down in 2008, right? Because of the yearbook. The yearbook. And if it was 2008, Pluto would not have been considered a planet that year.
Is Pluto back to being a planet, by the way?
I don't know. I don't listen to them because my very educated mother served us 9 pizzas, and I want my damn pizzas. So Pluto's always going to be a planet.
It's called a dwarf planet. Pluto's classification as a planet has had a history of changes since 2006. Per the International Astronomical Union's planetary criteria, Pluto isn't considered a planet because it hasn't cleared the neighborhood around its orbit of other objects. However, it does meet IAU's criteria for what constitute as a dwarf planet. So it's smaller than Earth's moon, too. Heart-shaped glacier, which we saw the memes of, by the way. Do you remember that? The memes of it showing its heart and it's going, please consider me a planet. Pluto wants Pluto wants you to have a nice day. A little heart on it. They drew arms and legs, and it's crying.
That's so cute. I don't remember that. Right? Poor Pluto. I feel the same way. Poor Pluto.
Oh, so they're also saying that, like, okay, it's Pluto's possibly being an inert ball of ice that's been thrown out the window or flipped on its head, that sort of thing. So they're considering it like things basically like added onto it to make it look like a planet, but it really isn't. So it being smaller than our moon.
Pluto might just be some like airline toilet flush that got sucked out into space and collected shit on the way out.
The first one. Yeah, exactly. It's a ball of piss that eventually got more shit onto it.
A space shuttle released all their waste.
Right, exactly.
To a planet. Oh,
goddamn Russians. And their conspiracies. Here's the thing about Pluto, though, is the reason why we're mentioning this because this is the little chant that little Elton and then subsequently present day Elton is chanting to himself to kind of make himself calm down. Was Mercury, Venus, Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus? No, Uranus,
Mars.
Jupiter, whatever. Forget Mars. Mars isn't important. Listen. Anyway, yes. So he chants out in order the from the sun. The planets, and he keeps going back and forth, and this is why we bring this up. And yes, and he doesn't mention Pluto specifically because it was ejected from the list of planets. All that we know now is that Nicholas Cantu is as big as a planet right now, and that's all that matters.
Did you notice how he was gripping the screwdriver, True, imagining that it was the Triceratops horn?
Yeah, I imagine it worked for a little while,
right?
Until Silas dragged him out, you know. Looking at like his flashbacks, I'm just trying to put myself in his shoes, and it's just so I can't. It's hard because I can't even imagine what it must have been like to be him trapped in a box like that, or trapping himself in a box. Yeah, him marking the days probably to kind of like his max, like his okay, I can't survive past this, so after 3 days I have to leave. There's just no other way.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, everybody, thank you for joining us for our lovely recording. Again, I recommend this episode highly. It does highlight some of Elton's, how things went down for him, the tragedy that is him, all his foibles, the wrestling that he does with, you know, because the wind always wins, but then sometimes it doesn't, and him trying to square that circle. And again, like seeing how bad he had it, how he basically survived on his own, and seeing how him go through this process, which I don't think is over yet, because obviously by the end of it, Hope does end up seeing Elton's mom's manuscript and her photo in the back or the front of it, and she is confronted with that image, something that she thought she got over, or at least is trying to get over, and now there's an extra roadblock. And the added fuckery of like him basically saying, I keep thinking that as impossible as it seems or feels, that she's out there somewhere taking care of Esmeralda after all these years, like a 10-year-old Esmeralda.
Right.
Ugh. And what does Hope do in that moment? Like, obviously, if I was Hope, I would not have said anything either. Like, how do you square that circle?
I hope she takes it to Iris. That's what I hope to see. I hope she brings her to Iris, and they can kind of talk about what to do. Honestly, I don't know what I would do.
I would have high hopes.
I would probably try to keep it to myself, but I don't think that's going to happen. You know. I mean, the first thing I would do is get rid of that damn marble. I mean, what if he sees it?
Yeah. Evidence, right? Yeah, because that's the one thing. It's funny that you say that because it's one of the things as a kid, he's saying, oh, I want to get a beaded bracelet.
Yep. He's gonna remember it, and he's gonna see it at some point. It's gonna happen.
And it's also, that's interesting, and I don't know if I made that connection at first, but like, don't the beads kind of remind you of planets in a weird way?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And do you know what?
Now that you say that, I didn't think about it then.
Do you know what Hope's looks like? Just if you had to do like a gut reaction, it's kind of orange, but mostly red.
Probably Jupiter.
I was gonna say Mars.
Oh.
Like, and what is Mars in Roman mythology? Oh, the god of war.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Also, going back to Pluto.
Well, Mars
Pluto's
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Mars is Aries.
I thought of Jupiter just because of the swirly pattern and it being orange. But
Jupiter's maybe, but I prefer to think Mars because of war. But I also prefer going back to Pluto. Pluto is the Roman god for Hades. Hades is god of the underworld, which is why he's not as part of the planets. This is a PG show, okay? We need to sanitize. We can't mention the devil, okay? It's too religious, okay? That's all I have to say about that.
They're not really afraid of bringing religion onto this show.
Fighting faith. Oh, where's Father Gabriel when you need him? So anyway, right? if you like what you heard in this episode, please rate this podcast at ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead. Give us 5 stars and just leave a little eggplant. Let us know how you feel. But if you'd like to write more and tell us what you liked about us the most and what you hate about us the most, just give us a rating. I mean, just say something, won't you? And if you really, really like what we're doing and you'd like to help support the show, get some of the unedited episodes ahead of time before we actually edit this thing down and chop it up and throw it up on the internet 4 days later. And also be a part of the chat like Nisa and Sharon D were today. Why don't you buy us a coffee? The way to do that is head over to ko-fi.com/squawkingdead. For less than a cup of coffee, you can make our day, get 30 days of access, be a part of the chat, get the unedited episodes. But if you subscribe to a coffee a month or more, we ain't stopping you. The party just keeps on rolling. You get unlimited access to all this stuff, and you help support a great show. I think we're great because I'm conceited, but that's okay.
I kind of do too.
Yeah, it's what makes the world go around. Us, we're the center at.
Kind of awesome. Kind of awesome.
Yeah, we're the sun to your universe. Lisa says we're great. Yeah, we are.
Great.
Who
like
cares?
Pluto, just like Pluto.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, bro, that's just Hades. Hades. No. You can't mention the devil.
I'm okay with. I'll allow it.
Pluto's got feelings too. Anyways, so thank you for joining us. Have a great night. We'll see you very soon as we cover Fear the Walking Dead's. It's the 4th episode. Who knows what it's called? I don't care. Bye, guys.
Bye.
See you, Charity. See you, Nisa.